America hides its darkest secrets behind beautiful walls and quiet doors. From coast to coast, there are homes so cursed that even the bravest ghost hunters refused to return. These are not just haunted houses, they are gateways to something older, something that watches from the corners and waits for night to fall. Some of these homes still stand fresh, with lights glowing in the windows, as if daring you to step inside. Others are left to rot, swallowed by time, their doors sealed, but their whispers alive. Each one holds a story that never ended, a spirit that never left, and a darkness that does not forgive. Tonight, we open those doors. We walk the hallways, where footsteps echo without bodies, where laughter turns into screams, and where shadows move against the light. These are the places that make believers out of skeptics, where investigators drop their cameras, and where silence is more terrifying than sound. So dim your lights, take a deep breath, and whatever you do not look behind you, because these are America's 15 most haunted houses, so cursed, even ghost hunters fled. Haunted house number 1, Wildermouth Mansion, New Orleans, Louisiana. In the heart of the French Quarter stands a mansion so beautiful, yet so cursed, that even time itself seems afraid to touch it. The Wildermouth Mansion. Behind its grand iron gates and elegant windows lies one of the darkest stories in American history. In the early 1800s, this house belonged to Madame Delphine Lalaurie, a woman of wealth, grace, and high society. To the world, she was charming and refined, hosting glittering parties where New Orleans elite gathered under chandeliers and music. But behind those walls, when the laughter faded and the guests went home, a nightmare began. The neighbors first suspected something was wrong when screams were heard at night. They whispered about the cries of people in pain, about chains rattling, and about shadows moving in candlelight where no one should be. For years, no one dared to question Madame Lalaurie. Her power and reputation kept the truth buried, until the night of the fire. In 1834, a blaze erupted in the mansion's kitchen. When rescuers broke through the locked doors upstairs, what they found would haunt New Orleans forever. Hidden rooms filled with suffering, torture, and death. The walls themselves seemed to bleed with the memory of agony. Madame Lalaurie vanished that night, fleeing into the darkness, leaving behind only her sins and her screams. After that night, the mansion refused to rest. The people of New Orleans said they could hear wailing from inside the empty house. Windows slammed shut on their own. Cold winds rushed through rooms that were perfectly sealed. Workers hired to restore the place left in terror, some swearing they saw pale figures, bound in chains, drifting down the staircase. Decades passed, and the mansion changed owners many times. None stayed long. Furniture moved on its own. Unseen hands tugged at clothes. Some said they heard Madame Lalaurie herself, laughing softly, her voice gliding through the halls like poison in the air. Others claimed the spirits of her victims still cried out for justice, their pain trapped in the walls forever. Even ghost hunters and skeptics have fled this place. Equipment fails without reason. Batteries drain in seconds. Voices echo through the static, whispering names no one knows. Those who enter often report feeling a pressure in their chest, as if the house itself is watching, remembering, deciding who can leave. Today, the Wildermouth Mansion still stands tall on Royal Street, its beauty hiding the horror within. Tour guides stop outside its gates but never go in. Locals cross the street rather than walk too close after dark. They say the house breathes at night, that the windows flicker with candlelight, and that sometimes, if you listen closely, You can still hear the sound of chains dragging across the floor. In a city filled with ghosts, the Wildermouth Mansion remains the most feared, not because of what was seen, but because of what was done. Evil does not fade when the walls remember, and in New Orleans, those walls have never forgotten. Number 2. The Amityville Horror House, Amityville, New York. On the quiet suburban street of Ocean Avenue, surrounded by trees and a calm breeze from the bay, stands a house that changed the way the world sees fear. The Amityville Horror House, a white Dutch colonial with dark windows shaped like eyes, staring out at anyone who dares to look back. In November 1974, this peaceful home became the scene of something unimaginable. Ronald DeFeo Jr., a young man living there with his family, took a rifle and murdered 6 of his own, his parents and 4 siblings, as they slept in their beds. The town of Amityville was shaken. No one could understand how such horror could happen in such a quiet neighborhood. A year later, the house was sold to George and Kathy Lutz and their 3 children. They moved in, hoping to start a new life. But the peace they dreamed of quickly turned into a waking nightmare. Strange sounds echoed through the halls. Doors slammed by themselves. The smell of decay filled the air, even when the house was spotless. The temperature dropped suddenly, so cold that breath turned to fog. At night, George would wake at the same time, 3:15 a.m., the exact hour the DeFeo murders took place. He would feel drawn to the boathouse, hearing whispers coming from the water. The children began speaking of unseen friends. A black figure appeared in mirrors. Kathy felt invisible hands touch her face, her arms, her hair. The priest who came to bless the house fled after hearing a deep voice growl the words, "Get out." He never returned. After only 28 days, the Lutz family ran from the house, leaving behind all their belongings. They never went back. What happened in those days remains a mystery. Some call it possession, others a haunting, and a few claim it was all a hoax. But every investigator who has stepped through those doors admits that something about the house feels wrong, heavy, dark, alive. Those who pass by late at night say they see the upstairs windows glowing red, even when the house is empty. The air grows thick, and footsteps echo faintly from within. Some say the spirits of the murdered DeFeo family still linger there, repeating their final night over and over. Others believe something darker was awakened, something that found joy in the pain and refuses to leave. Ghost hunters who entered with cameras and recording devices have often left shaken. Batteries drain instantly, equipment malfunctions. One investigator claimed he heard a child whisper his name in his ear, though he stood alone in an empty room. Another said the energy of the house felt like a living thing, watching, waiting, testing who was brave enough to stay. The Amityville Horror House has become a legend, but its story is more than a tale. It is a reminder that some places carry memories too heavy to fade. The walls may look calm, the grass may grow green, but the darkness beneath still breathes. The house has since been sold and renamed, its address changed to discourage tourists. Yet even with a new name, its reputation remains. Locals still lower their voices when they speak of it. They say that no matter what you call it, the evil inside knows who it is, and so it stands, quiet and still, the house on Ocean Avenue, watching through those windowed eyes, waiting for the next soul who dares to believe it is just another home. Number 3. Winchester Mystery House, San Jose, California. In the heart of San Jose stands one of the strangest and most haunted mansions in all of America, the Winchester Mystery House, a sprawling maze of endless halls, hidden doors, and staircases that lead nowhere. It is said that madness built it, but grief gave it life. This was the home of Sarah Winchester, the widow of William Winchester, heir to the fortune made from the Winchester rifle, the same weapon that changed history and that took countless lives. After her husband and infant daughter died, Sarah was overcome by sorrow. She sought guidance from a spiritual medium who told her that the spirits of those killed by the Winchester rifle were cursing her family and that she would never know peace unless she built them a house. But not just any house, a home that would confuse the dead, a place that would never be finished, a house without an end. So Sarah began building in 1884, and she never stopped. For 38 years, carpenters worked day and night. Rooms were built, torn down, and rebuilt again. Doors opened into walls. Windows looked into other rooms instead of the outside. Staircases led straight into ceilings. Secret passages twisted through the walls like veins. No one but Sarah knew the full design. She believed that as long as construction continued, the spirits would remain calm. But if the hammers stopped, they would come for her. Visitors to the Winchester Mystery House say it feels alive. The air is heavy, as though the house itself is breathing. People hear footsteps on the upper floors when no one is there. Cold spots drift through the hallways, and faint whispers echo from behind locked doors. Some claim they have seen Sarah's shadow gliding silently through the rooms, still watching over her creation. Even ghost hunters, armed with their equipment and experience, have left the house shaken. Cameras shut off without warning. Recorders captured soft voices that repeat the same words again and again. Why stop building? One team reported seeing a doorknob slowly turn by itself, though no one stood on the other side. The house has more than 160 rooms, yet there is no real map, no true layout. Some doors open to sheer drops. Others lead to nothing but darkness. It is as though Sarah built a labyrinth for the lost, a place where the restless dead could wander forever, never finding their way out. When Sarah died in 1922, construction finally stopped. The workers laid down their tools, and for the first time in nearly 4 decades, the mansion fell silent. But locals say that the silence did not last long. They claim that at night, hammers still tap faintly in the walls, that phantom footsteps walk the stairs, and that Sarah herself continues her endless work from beyond the grave. Today, the Winchester Mystery House stands as a monument to guilt, grief, and the weight of a haunted conscience. It is more than a house. It is a maze of sorrow, built by a woman who believed that she could build her way out of death itself. And perhaps, in some way, she succeeded. Because even now, long after her own death, her house still grows in whispers and memory. It waits in silence, its endless rooms holding secrets that no one living will ever truly understand. Number 4. The Myrtles Plantation, St. Francisville, Louisiana. Beneath the moss-draped oaks of St. Francisville stands one of the most haunted homes in the American South, the Myrtles Plantation, a beautiful mansion wrapped in white pillars with wide porches and quiet charm. But behind its beauty lies a darkness that has lasted for centuries. The Myrtles Plantation was built in 1796, and since then, it has become known as a place where the dead refuse to leave. They say 10 murders and countless tragedies have taken place here, though not all were ever recorded. Each generation has added another story, another shadow, another spirit to its long history. The most famous tale is that of Chloe, a young enslaved woman who worked in the house. Legend says she was caught listening at a keyhole and punished by having one of her ears cut off. To hide her scar, she wore a green headscarf. Seeking revenge, Chloe baked a cake laced with poison. But the plan went wrong. The mistress of the house and her 2 daughters died. In rage, the others hanged Chloe from a tree. And since that day, her spirit has never left the plantation. Visitors and staff have seen her wandering the halls, her green scarf glowing faintly in the dark. Her reflection has appeared in mirrors, photographs, and glass windows. Even when no one is around, her footsteps echo across the old wooden floors. But Chloe is not alone. There are stories of children's laughter echoing from empty rooms, of a piano playing softly at night, and of a woman in white who appears near the staircase where she was once shot. Guests who stay overnight report being touched by unseen hands or waking to the sound of whispers beside their bed. One of the most chilling accounts comes from a photo taken in the 1990s by a visitor. Standing between 2 buildings was the faint, shadowy figure of a woman, her head slightly bowed, her form clear as day. Experts could not explain it. No one present that day saw her in person. Even ghost hunters have left the Myrtles shaken. Their cameras flicker, voices are recorded whispering names, and sudden drops in temperature sweep through rooms like invisible storms. One investigator swore that as he asked for a sign, a door creaked open slowly by itself, and a faint humming filled the air. Despite the fear, the plantation still draws people from around the world. Some come seeking proof, others seeking peace, but all agree that something lingers here, something powerful and sorrowful. The Myrtles is not just haunted, it feels alive, as though the souls within still remember every moment of their pain and loss. At sunset, when the air turns golden and the Spanish moss sways gently in the breeze, the plantation looks almost peaceful. But when the night comes, the calm breaks. The lights flicker in the windows, footsteps sound on the porch, and the wind carries a voice that seems to say, "We are still here." The Myrtles Plantation stands as both a monument to beauty and a graveyard of memory, a reminder that history cannot always be buried, because sometimes the past does not rest beneath the ground, it walks among us. Number 5. Hampton Lilbridge House, Savannah, Georgia. On a quiet cobblestone street in the historic city of Savannah stands a house that seems to breathe with an unease all its own. The Hampton Lilbridge House. Its pale blue walls and elegant design hide a darkness that has lingered for centuries. This house is more than haunted. It is alive with sorrow, mystery, and something that watches from the corners. The story begins in the 1790s, when Hampton Lilbridge, a wealthy merchant from Rhode Island, built the house for his family. At first, it was a place of laughter and light. The sound of horse carriages and the smell of magnolia filled the air, but the peace would not last. Within a few short years, tragedy struck. Hampton Lilbridge died unexpectedly, and the home he built became a vessel of grief. For decades, the house passed from one owner to another, each reporting strange happenings they could not explain. Servants spoke of cold air that moved through sealed rooms, of doors that opened in the middle of the night, and of whispers that rose from the walls like a breath. The house began to change people. Some grew restless, others fell ill. A few simply left and never returned. When the home was nearly destroyed in the mid-20th century, a man named Jim Williams decided to save it. He was known for restoring historic buildings throughout Savannah, and he saw beauty where others saw only ruin. But from the moment he began the restoration, strange events plagued the project. Workers refused to enter certain rooms after hearing footsteps when no one was inside. Tools disappeared only to be found neatly arranged hours later. A heavy presence seemed to follow them wherever they went. During the restoration, something was uncovered beneath the house. Some say it was an old crypt, others claim it was a forgotten grave. Whatever it was, the workers sealed it quickly, and from that moment, the haunting grew stronger. The noises became louder, the shadows deeper. At night, Williams himself reported hearing the sound of furniture scraping across the floor, even when no one was in the room above him. Then came the day that nearly broke him. A worker was standing in an upstairs doorway when, without warning, he was lifted off his feet and thrown across the room. No one touched him. There were no wires, no tricks, just a sudden violent force that left the man shaken and speechless. He quit that same day, refusing to return, and swore that the house was cursed. Neighbors began to notice strange lights glowing in the windows long after the workers had gone. Some saw a tall figure standing at the top window, watching the street below. Others heard voices drifting out into the night, speaking words they could not understand. One evening, as the restoration neared completion, Jim Williams invited a group of friends to see the progress. As they stood in the parlor, a deep chill filled the room. The chandelier above them began to sway, though the air was still. Then came a low, guttural sound, a voice that seemed to come from the very walls. One of the guests fainted. Another ran from the house, refusing to ever return. Even after the renovations were finished, no one stayed there for long. Visitors described feeling dizzy or disoriented the moment they stepped inside. Cold drafts would pass through closed rooms. Candles would extinguish themselves, and mirrors would fog as if someone had breathed across them. Some guests even claimed to see a man in old-fashioned clothing standing by the fireplace, his face expressionless, his eyes fixed on them. The paranormal activity grew so intense that an exorcism was eventually performed. A priest entered the house to bless it and drive out whatever lingered within. For a short time, the energy seemed calmer, but the peace did not last. Within days, the noises returned, louder than before. To this day, people who pass the Hampton Lilbridge house at night claim they hear footsteps pacing across the upper floor. They see curtains move when there is no wind, and some swear they can hear the faint sound of a man sighing, as if weary of being trapped in a place he cannot leave. Tour guides who bring visitors to the site often avoid standing too close to the doorway. Cameras malfunction. Recorders pick up voices saying, "Leave us be." It is said that the house is built on land, marked by death, long before the first brick was laid. Some believe that the spirits of those buried beneath still linger, angry that their rest was disturbed. Others say that the soul of Hampton Lilbridge himself never left, unable to part with the home that once symbolized his greatest dream. Savannah is a city known for its ghosts, but even here, the Hampton Lilbridge house stands apart. Paranormal investigators have called it one of the most active locations in the country. Many refuse to enter it again after feeling something cold brush past them, something that seems aware, intelligent, and waiting. As night falls over the cobblestone streets and the lamps flicker to life, the house seems to glow faintly from within. The walls hum with energy, the air thickens, and those who listen closely swear they can hear a voice whisper from the shadows, "Do not wake us." The Hampton Lilbridge house remains a mystery that even time cannot solve. A place where beauty and terror coexist, where the living walk beside the dead, and where history never truly fades away. If you ever find yourself in Savannah and pass this house, do not linger. Because once you stop and look too long, the house might notice you, and if it does, you may never feel alone again. Number 6. Sallie House, Atchison, Kansas. In the quiet town of Atchison, Kansas, there stands a small white two-story home on North 2nd Street. From the outside, it looks peaceful, almost ordinary. But those who know its story understand that the walls of the Sally House hold something far darker than time or memory. It is a place where innocence turned into agony and where the past refuses to rest. The legend begins in the early 1900s. A young girl named Sally, no older than 6, was brought to the home of a local physician who lived and practiced there. She was sick, clutching her stomach and crying out in pain. The doctor, believing she had appendicitis, decided that immediate surgery was needed. There was no hospital nearby, no time to spare. He prepared the kitchen table for the operation. But before the anesthesia could take full effect, Sally woke up. She saw the scalpel in the doctor's hand, felt the first incision, and screamed in terror and agony. Her heart stopped moments later. The doctor tried to revive her, but it was too late. The child died in that very room. Since that day, people have said Sally never left. The house became known for strange noises, flickering lights, and the unmistakable feeling that someone unseen was always watching. Some call her spirit vengeful. Others say she is lost and confused, trapped in the place of her final fear. For decades, the house sat quietly, passed from one family to another. Each new owner told stories that grew eerily similar. Toys would move by themselves. Lights would turn on and off. Cold spots would appear suddenly, lingering like invisible hands on bare skin. Pets refused to enter certain rooms, barking at empty corners, as if warning their owners of something they could not see. But it wasn't until the early 1990s that the true horror of the Sally House became known. A young couple, Tony and Deborah Pickman, moved in with dreams of raising a family. At first, they felt comfortable. It was an old home with character, and though it creaked and moaned at night, they thought little of it. Then, the odd things began. Their dog stood growling at the nursery door for hours, his fur standing on end. The phone would ring, but when they answered, there was only static. Lights flickered without cause. Toys arranged themselves in perfect circles. The couple would find items they had just set down, moved to another room. Deborah began to notice small signs that felt almost playful. Childlike drawings appearing on walls, her son's toys placed neatly on the stairs. She believed the spirit might be that of a lonely little girl. But as days turned into weeks, the energy in the house began to change. Tony started waking in the middle of the night with deep scratches on his arms and chest. Sometimes the scratches appeared right before Deborah's eyes, forming across his skin as if from invisible claws. One night, as he stood in the kitchen, a picture frame flew off the wall and shattered at his feet. The air grew colder, the lights dimmed, and then came the voice, a soft whisper calling his name from the darkness. The haunting became more violent. Tony would see a little girl at the end of the hallway, staring silently. Her dress was old-fashioned, her eyes wide and dark. Sometimes she smiled, and sometimes she did not. He would blink, and she would be gone. But the feeling she left behind was always the same, a deep, suffocating dread. The couple contacted paranormal investigators. Cameras were set up throughout the house, and what they captured shocked everyone. Objects moved on their own. Electronic devices malfunctioned. One camera even caught the shadow of a small hand pressing against the nursery wall when no one was there. Psychics were called in, and one after another claimed the same thing. The spirit in the house was indeed that of a young girl, but there was something else with her. Something darker. They believed that Sally was not the only presence trapped within those walls. Some thought a demonic entity had attached itself to the home, using Sally's image to lure people in, to gain sympathy before turning malicious. Tony grew increasingly tormented. He saw figures in mirrors, felt hands grab him in the dark, and woke to find scratches on his back, shaped like long fingers. Deborah, desperate to protect her family, finally convinced him to leave. They moved out, but even after leaving, they claimed the entity followed them for a time. Only after a priest blessed their new home did the activity cease. Since then, the Sally House has become one of the most investigated haunted homes in America. Paranormal teams from across the world have spent nights there, and almost all report the same things. Cold spots that appear suddenly, batteries draining instantly, voices caught on recorders saying things like, "Help me," or "Stay away." Some have reported being touched, pushed, or scratched. Others have seen the shadow of a small girl standing in the doorway of the nursery. Visitors often bring gifts for Sally, dolls, candy, toys, hoping to calm her spirit. Some believe she is simply seeking comfort, still reliving the pain of her final moments. Others warn that these offerings only feed the darkness that dwells there. Many who enter describe a strange emotional shift. They begin to feel anxious, then dizzy, as though something is closing in around them. Some leave crying without understanding why. One investigator described feeling a hand tug on his shirt, followed by a sharp whisper in his ear that said, "Don't hurt me again." Locals in Atchison avoid the house after dark. Taxi drivers refuse to stop near it at night. Even seasoned ghost hunters have fled the property after being overwhelmed by unseen forces. Some have described feeling as though something was trying to crawl into their chest, pressing on their heart until they could barely breathe. And yet, despite the fear, the house remains open to those brave enough to enter. It stands as a reminder that some tragedies never fade, that the echoes of suffering can cling to a place for generations. Today, the Sally House still looks ordinary from the outside. White siding, small front porch, a quiet little yard. But those who know its story understand that what waits inside is far from ordinary. It is a place frozen in time, where a child's final scream still hangs in the air, and where every creak of the floorboard might be a whisper from the past. They say Sally sometimes appears in photographs, her face peeking from behind a doorway, her eyes wide with the same fear she felt on the day she died. Some claim to hear the faint sound of a girl crying late at night, and if you listen closely, you might also hear the scrape of metal on wood, the echo of the doctor's scalpel. The Sally House does not just haunt those who enter it. It follows them long after they leave. It stays in their dreams, in their memories, in their bones. Because once you step inside and feel her presence, you carry a part of her story with you. And some stories are never meant to be forgotten. Number 7. House of Death, 14 West 10th Street, New York City. In the calm beauty of Greenwich Village, New York City, where brownstone houses line the street in perfect rows and the air feels almost timeless, there stands one building that carries a story far too heavy for its peaceful surroundings. At first glance, it looks ordinary, even elegant, with its deep red bricks, its graceful windows, and the kind of front steps that invite admiration. But once the sun sets, locals say the air around the property changes. A strange chill creeps in, lights flicker behind drawn curtains, and the faint echo of footsteps begins to move through empty rooms. This is the House of Death, a home that has seen more sorrow, more fear, and more mystery than most places in all of New York. Its history begins in the late 19th century. For more than 100 years, this townhouse has been home to many different people, writers, artists, families, and dreamers, all of whom hoped to find comfort within its walls. Instead, many found something else. Misfortune seemed to follow every owner who stepped through its doors. Death came too often, accidents too strange, and stories of shadows and whispers too many to ignore. One of the most famous names connected to the house is Mark Twain. In the year 1900, Twain rented the home for a short time while living in New York. He was drawn to its beauty and charm, but even he spoke of unsettling experiences during his stay. Twain told friends that strange events happened at night. He saw glowing lights float across rooms. He felt cold bursts of air from nowhere. He even once saw a piece of wood move by itself across the floor. Twain, being a man of reason, tried to explain it away, but something in that house lingered in his thoughts long after he left. To this day, people who visit claim to see a man in a white suit wandering near the staircase, his figure faint and glowing in the dark, said to be the ghost of Twain himself, still pacing the halls of the home he could never quite forget. After Twain, the house became the property of several other residents. Families moved in and out, each one leaving sooner than planned. Neighbors began to talk about screams in the night, doors slamming on their own, and figures watching from the windows when the rooms were supposed to be empty. A woman in a long dark dress was often seen staring down from the second-floor window, her face pale, her hands pressed against the glass. Those who saw her said she vanished the moment anyone looked twice. Through the years, the stories only grew darker. The house developed a reputation for misfortune. Tenants who moved in reported bad luck, sudden illness, or terrible arguments that ended with people leaving in tears. Some claimed to feel a strange pressure when they slept, as if invisible hands were resting on their chest. Others said they woke to the sound of a child crying from another room, even when no children lived in the building. But the most tragic event connected to the House of Death came in the 1980s. By then, the EE building had been divided into small apartments. One of them was rented by a woman and her young daughter. Neighbors remembered them as kind, quiet, and loving. Then one night, the neighborhood was shaken by an unthinkable act. The woman's boyfriend, a lawyer named Joel Steinberg, was arrested for the death of the little girl. The crime shocked New York City and made headlines across the country. It was a moment of horror that left a permanent scar on the house. From that night onward, many said the energy inside became unbearable, as if the walls themselves absorbed the grief and would never release it. Investigators and paranormal researchers have visited the house for decades since that tragedy. Many describe feeling an immediate heaviness when entering, a sadness that presses deep into the chest. Cold air moves through the hallways without reason. Photographs show faint white shapes, orbs of light, and at times, the outline of human faces. Electronic devices stop working, and cameras lose power the moment they cross the front door. Some visitors say they hear footsteps on the stairs, slow and heavy, stopping right behind them. But when they turn around, the stairs are empty. Psychics who have explored the house claim that more than 20 spirits linger within. Some appear lost and quiet, wandering through rooms as if trapped between worlds. Others seem angry, shouting in whispers that echo through the walls. Among them is said to be the ghost of a young girl who appears in the hallway, wearing a small white dress, her eyes wide and empty, her voice no louder than a breath. There are also reports of a man in an old-fashioned suit seen near the fireplace, holding a book and murmuring softly to himself. Many people believe the house holds both light and darkness. some spirits peaceful, others filled with rage. Visitors often describe a strange pull, as though the house is alive and aware of their presence. A few even say they felt invisible fingers brush their hair or touch their shoulder gently, as if something wanted to be noticed. Even today, the House of Death stands quietly at 14 West 10th Street, its windows reflecting the city lights. People walk by it every day, unaware of what waits beyond its doors. But those who know the stories avoid looking too long. They say that at night, the faint figure of Mark Twain can be seen in the window, still watching the street below. They say the woman in the long dress still waits at the top of the stairs, her pale face turned toward the door. And they say that if you stand too close, you can hear faint whispers calling your name from inside. The house has seen too much sorrow, too much blood, and too many restless souls. Its beauty hides its truth, and its silence hides the cries of the dead. The House of Death is not just haunted by ghosts. It is haunted by the weight of every tragedy that ever happened within its walls. And no matter how many times it changes hands, the spirits inside never seem to let go. Number 8. Sweetwater Mansion, Florence, Alabama. In the quiet countryside of Florence, Alabama, surrounded by tall oaks and rolling hills, stands an elegant white-columned mansion that once symbolized wealth, pride, and power. But beneath its beauty lies a story woven with sorrow, betrayal, and the restless spirits of the past. The Sweetwater Mansion, built long before the Civil War, is one of the most haunted homes in the American South, a place where time seems to have stopped, and where the echoes of lost souls still move through the halls. Construction of the mansion began in the early 1800s on land granted to the Patton family, one of the most influential families in Alabama. The house was designed by General John Brahan and completed by his son-in-law, Robert Patton, who would later become governor of the state. Its grand white pillars, marble fireplaces, and sweeping staircases reflected the luxury of the plantation era. Yet even from its earliest days, tragedy and darkness followed the family. The Pattons lived lives of privilege, surrounded by wealth, land, and slaves who worked the fields. But the Civil War changed everything. When the war reached Alabama, the mansion became a shelter for wounded soldiers. Blood stained the once beautiful floors. The sound of pain filled the halls that had once echoed with laughter. As the war dragged on, the family suffered terrible losses. Sons never returned from battle, and loved ones were buried beneath the ancient trees that still surround the property today. Locals say that the spirits of those who died in Sweetwater never left. Visitors report cold drafts that pass suddenly through rooms with no open windows. Doors creak open on their own. Faint footsteps can be heard moving down the long hallway at night. And sometimes, a figure dressed in Confederate uniform appears near the staircase, standing tall and silent before fading into the shadows. But the most chilling story connected to Sweetwater Mansion is the tale of a hidden room discovered by accident many years after the war. It is said that workers repairing the house stumbled upon a small sealed chamber behind one of the walls in the basement. Inside was a coffin, and in it lay the preserved remains of a young man in full Confederate dress. No one knows how long he had been there or why his body was hidden instead of buried properly. Some believe he was the son of the family, brought home from war in secret to spare the household more grief. Others think he died under mysterious circumstances that the family tried to keep hidden. After that discovery, strange things began to happen more frequently. Lights flickered even though the wiring was new. Tools went missing and reappeared in other rooms. Workers heard whispers calling their names, followed by the sound of slow breathing in the dark. Some claimed to see the shadow of a man standing beside the coffin, as if still guarding it after death. The air around that room became so cold that no one wanted to enter again. Throughout the years, countless guests and paranormal investigators have visited Sweetwater Mansion, hoping to uncover its secrets. Many have left with stories that cannot be explained. Some reported seeing a woman in white walking across the balcony, her face pale and distant, her gown glowing softly in the moonlight. Others say she appears inside the house, standing by a window, as if waiting for someone to return. Her identity remains a mystery, though some believe she is one of the Patton daughters who died waiting for her husband to come home from the war. One investigator described hearing faint music late at night, like an old piano playing a slow and mournful tune. When he followed the sound, it led him to the parlor, but the piano was covered in dust and untouched for years. Another visitor, a caretaker who lived on the property for a time, said she often heard the sound of footsteps climbing the stairs, followed by a man's voice calling out the name, Robert. When she answered, no one was there. It is also said that a dark figure sometimes appears near the front door, wearing what looks like a soldier's coat, his face half hidden in shadow. He stands silently, watching, as if waiting for someone he once loved. Then, as quickly as he appears, he is gone, leaving only the faint scent of gunpowder and smoke. The energy inside Sweetwater Mansion is heavy, almost alive. Visitors describe an unshakable feeling of being watched, especially near the basement and the old bedrooms upstairs. Photographs taken inside often show orbs of light, misty shapes, or faces that do not belong to anyone in the room. In one famous picture, a woman's reflection appeared in a mirror during a tour, though no one stood near it at the time. Some psychics who have visited claim there are at least 7 spirits still residing within the mansion. They say not all of them are peaceful. One spirit, described as cold and angry, is said to guard the house against strangers. People who mock or challenge the supernatural, there often experience accidents, sudden illness, fainting, or a deep sadness that follows them for days. Others say the spirits simply want to be remembered, to have their stories told after so many years of silence. The mansion's beauty makes it hard to believe what it hides. Sunlight streaming through its tall windows gives it a golden glow during the day, but at night, the shadows grow thick and long. The air becomes still, and the whispers begin again. Some nights, people standing outside on the lawn claim to see candlelight flickering through the windows, though the house is empty and locked. Sweetwater Mansion is more than a relic of Southern history. It is a monument to love, loss, and unfinished stories. Every creak of its wooden floorboards, every whisper that drifts through its corridors, seems to remind visitors that the past never truly dies here. Even now, those who live nearby refuse to go near the mansion after dark. They say the spirits of Sweetwater still wander, bound to the land that once gave them both life and death. They move through the rooms where they laughed, cried, and suffered, their presence felt in the cold air and the silence that follows every step. Sweetwater Mansion stands as a haunting reminder that beauty can hide tragedy and that the dead do not always sleep. Beneath its grand pillars and fading paint, history breathes, and the spirits of a lost time still wait, forever bound to the house that will never let them go. Number 9. The Grove, Jefferson, Texas. In the small, quiet town of Jefferson, Texas, there stands a house that looks warm and welcoming at first glance. It is a charming old building with white walls, green shutters, and a wide porch that stretches along the front, surrounded by tall trees and the gentle hum of cicadas. To any passing visitor, it seems like a peaceful piece of Southern history. But those who know its past speak of something far darker. The Grove is a place where laughter turns to whispers, where time folds upon itself, and where unseen eyes seem to follow every step you take. Built in the mid-19th century, the Grove is one of the oldest homes in Jefferson. Its story begins in the 1860s, during a time when Jefferson was a booming riverport town. The house was beautiful even then, designed with high ceilings, wide windows, and elegant woodwork that reflected the prosperity of its owners. Yet behind that beauty, tragedy seemed to follow every family that ever lived there. The first owner was a merchant who built the home for his wife and children. But soon after they moved in, the family began to experience strange events. Servants whispered of ghostly figures moving through the garden at night. The children claimed to see a woman dressed in white, watching them from the corner of their bedroom. Then, one morning, the merchant's wife was found lifeless at the bottom of the stairs. The cause of death was never fully explained. After that, the house changed hands many times. Each new resident seemed to suffer misfortune. Some fell ill and never recovered. Others left abruptly, refusing to speak of what they had seen or heard. The townspeople began to call it a cursed place, though no one could say exactly why. Years later, the Grove was converted into a restaurant. For a while, it seemed as if the haunting might have quieted. Guests came to dine, unaware of the spirits that lingered around them. But before long, employees and visitors began to experience the same strange phenomena that had terrified families before them. Silverware moved by itself. Glasses fell from shelves with no one nearby. Doors opened and closed as though guided by invisible hands. One waitress recalled carrying a tray of dishes when she felt someone brush past her shoulder. Thinking it was a customer, she turned, but the room was empty. Another worker said she saw the reflection of a man standing behind her in a mirror. When she spun around, there was no one there. The man in the mirror, she said, wore old-fashioned clothes and had a serious expression, like someone who belonged to another time. Visitors to the Grove often describe a heavy feeling in the air, especially near the back rooms and the garden. Some say they hear soft footsteps following them down the hallway, though the floorboards stay still. Others feel sudden bursts of cold air, or the brush of unseen fingers against their skin. One guest claimed to have seen a woman sitting by the window, her face calm, but her eyes full of sadness. When he blinked, she was gone, leaving only the faint scent of lavender behind. The current owners have embraced the home's reputation for being haunted. They host tours for those brave enough to step inside after dark. During these tours, guests often experience unexplained occurrences. Flashlights flicker. Phones lose battery power for no reason. Some hear whispers calling their names from empty rooms. One visitor fainted after feeling a sharp pain in his shoulder, only to discover 3 faint scratches there afterward. Paranormal investigators have visited the Grove many times. Recordings captured voices whispering words like, "Help me," and "Stay here." Cameras picked up orbs of light floating through rooms, and in some cases, the faint outline of a person standing in the doorway. One investigator claimed he saw a man walking through the garden in broad daylight, only for the figure to disappear into thin air. Local legends say that the Grove was built on top of old burial grounds, and that the restless spirits of the past still wander beneath the soil. Others believe that some of the early tragedies that took place there, including violent deaths and mysterious disappearances, left behind a spiritual stain that can never be erased. The garden itself is said to be one of the most active areas. Visitors often hear the sound of footsteps in the grass, as if someone is walking just behind them. Shadows move between the trees, and sometimes a woman's soft singing drifts through the air, even when the garden is empty. There is also the spirit of a young girl who appears near the front door, her laughter echoing faintly before fading into silence. Many who visit the grove describe feeling as if they are being watched from the upstairs windows. Some even see faces looking out when the building is locked and no one is inside. Photographs taken from the street have shown faint silhouettes peering through the glass, shapes of men and women dressed in clothing from another century. The house seems to carry its history like a wound that never heals. During the day, it looks peaceful and still. Sunlight dances across its walls, and the scent of flowers drifts from the garden. But at night, when the wind picks up and the moonlight falls across the porch, the spirits of the grove seem to awaken. Doors creak, open. Shadows stretch long across the floor. The laughter of invisible children echoes faintly in the distance. Those who have spent the night say it is impossible to sleep. The air grows colder by the hour. Whispers come from the corners of the room. Sometimes, the faint sound of a piano plays, though there is no piano in the house anymore. The grove stands as both a piece of Southern history and a reminder that the past never truly fades. Every ghost that lingers there has a story, and every creak of the floorboards seems to tell part of it. For some, it is a place of fascination, a living museum of the supernatural. For others, it is a house best left alone. Even today, locals lower their voices when they speak of it. They say the spirits there are restless, watching from the windows, waiting for someone to listen to their stories. The grove may look like a house, but those who have been inside know the truth. It is something else entirely. It is a doorway between life and death, where time stands still and where the living and the dead walk side by side. Number 10. Jesse Patterson Farmhouse, Athens, Ohio. Hidden deep in the rolling green hills of Athens County, where the fog settles low and the trees seem to whisper in the wind, stands the Jesse Patterson Farmhouse. To the untrained eye, it looks like an ordinary piece of forgotten history, an old wooden structure with peeling paint, rusted hinges, and fields that stretch endlessly around it. But to the locals, it is something else entirely. They call it cursed, a place where time stands still and the line between the living and the dead has long since faded away. The house was built in the mid-1800s by Jesse Patterson, a hard-working farmer known throughout the area for his dedication to his land and family. Life in rural Ohio was tough, but the Pattersons built something beautiful here, a home filled with laughter, light, and the warmth of family. But all that changed one bitter winter night. According to old records and whispered stories passed through generations, sickness struck the Patterson family. It started with one child, then another, until the home was filled with the sound of coughing and fevered cries. Despite desperate efforts to find help, the family was isolated by snow and sickness. One by one, they faded, and by the time spring came, the once lively farmhouse was silent. When neighbors finally entered, they found signs of panic, overturned chairs, broken dishes, and a family portrait lying shattered on the floor. Some say the look on Jesse Patterson's face, frozen in death, told of something more than illness, something that had come to claim not just their lives, but their peace. Since that day, the farmhouse has never truly rested. Those who venture near it speak of lights glowing from the windows long after midnight, though no one has lived there for decades. Others tell of hearing a child's laughter echoing through the halls, soft at first, then turning into cries that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Farmhands who once worked the surrounding fields refused to stay after dark. They claimed that doors would slam without warning, that cold winds would sweep through closed rooms, and that footsteps followed them wherever they went. One man swore he saw a woman in a long white dress standing in the upstairs window, her hand pressed against the glass, her face pale and hollow. When he called out, she turned away and vanished into the dark. In the 1970s, a team of university students from Ohio University decided to investigate the farmhouse after hearing the local legends. Armed with cameras, recorders, and bravado, they entered the decaying home. Within minutes, their equipment began to fail. Batteries drained instantly, and a piercing static filled their microphones. On one recording, a soft voice can be heard whispering, "Leave us be." The group left before dawn, shaken, pale, and unwilling to ever return. Paranormal investigators who have since visited the site describe it as heavy with energy, a place that feels alive even when it stands perfectly still. Cold spots appear and vanish in seconds. Shadowy shapes drift across rooms. Some investigators claim they felt unseen hands brush their shoulders or heard footsteps pacing the hall above them, even though no one else was inside. A few have even said they saw the figure of Jesse Patterson himself, standing by the old fireplace with a sorrowful look, staring into the ashes that have long gone cold. Neighbors still avoid the farmhouse after sunset. They say they've seen lantern lights flicker near the barn, even though there's no electricity. Drivers on the nearby road have reported seeing a young girl standing near the gate, her dress glowing faintly in the moonlight. When they stop to check, she disappears into thin air, leaving behind only the faint scent of wood smoke and cold earth. The farmhouse has been abandoned for decades, but its story has never faded. Some say the spirits that remain there are simply lost, bound to the only home they ever knew. Others believe something darker holds them captive, feeding on grief and fear, twisting memories into endless torment. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: those who enter the Jesse Patterson farmhouse never forget it. They leave with shaking hands, cold skin, and the feeling that something unseen is watching them still. It stands to this day, weathered and silent, waiting in the Ohio hills. The doors creak when the wind blows, and the floorboards groan as though someone still walks those halls. Whether it's the spirits of the Patterson family or something far older that has claimed the house, no one knows. But those who dare to go near swear they can hear a voice carried on the night breeze, a whisper from the farmhouse that says, "We are still here." Number 11. Franklin Castle, Cleveland, Ohio. In the heart of Cleveland's old Ohio City neighborhood, where elegant Victorian homes line the quiet streets and the past seems to cling to every brick and lamppost, stands a mansion so steeped in darkness that locals speak its name in hushed tones: Franklin Castle. At first glance, it is breathtaking, tall, grand, and beautifully crafted, with towers that rise like watchful eyes above the neighborhood. But those who know its story say that beauty is only a mask. Behind those stone walls lies a legacy of grief, madness, and restless spirits that refuse to leave. The house was built in the late 1800s by a wealthy German immigrant named Hannes Tiedemann. He was a successful banker and businessman who wanted a home that reflected his family's stature. With its twisting staircases, elaborate woodwork, and secret passageways, Franklin Castle was a marvel of design. Yet from the very beginning, there was something strange about it. It is said that misfortune followed the Tiedemann family from the day they moved in. Within just a few years, 4 of Hannes's children died under mysterious circumstances. Some were said to have succumbed to illness, others to accidents that no one could quite explain. Then, his mother passed away in the house as well. Neighbors began to whisper that the grand home was cursed, that something inside it was claiming the lives of everyone who entered. When tragedy struck again, with the death of Hannes's wife, Louise, the rumors deepened. People began to suspect that her death was not natural, that she might have been driven to despair or worse. In grief, Hannes began to change. He became reclusive, unpredictable, and obsessed with remodeling the house. He ordered the construction of secret rooms, hidden tunnels, and narrow staircases that led nowhere. Some believed he was building them to hide something or someone. One tale speaks of a hidden chamber behind a sliding panel in the ballroom, where strange noises can still be heard late at night. Another tells of the attic, where the cries of a baby echo through the rafters, though no child has lived there in decades. People say that the cold wind that moves through the halls is not from broken windows or open doors, but from spirits passing unseen. Over the years, the mansion changed owners many times. None stayed long. Some claimed to hear footsteps pacing endlessly across the upper floors when the house was empty. Others spoke of phantom figures appearing at the top of the staircase, a woman in black, a man in old-fashioned clothes, or a shadowy presence that disappears when you blink. In one story, a group of guests saw a young girl standing by the window, her face pale and sad. She lifted her hand as if asking for help, and then she was gone. During the mid-20th century, the house became the center of attention for paranormal researchers. Strange photographs emerged, showing transparent faces, glowing mists, and shapes that resembled figures standing in the corners of empty rooms. Several investigators reported hearing German voices whispering in the dark, calling out names that matched those of the Tiedemann family. Later, when new owners tried to renovate the home, they discovered hidden passageways behind walls, secret compartments beneath the floorboards, and narrow tunnels that connected different parts of the mansion. One crew even claimed to find human bones sealed inside a small chamber near the foundation. Whether those bones belonged to one of the Tiedemanns or someone else entirely, no one ever learned. Visitors today describe Franklin Castle as cold, even in the heat of summer. Its walls seem to breathe, its floors creak like footsteps, and its rooms carry a stillness that makes your skin crawl. Tour guides say that lights flicker on their own, doors open and close without warning, and shadows glide along the walls when no one is near. The air smells faintly of old wood and candle smoke, and if you stand long enough in silence, you might hear the faint sound of sobbing. Locals believe the spirits of the Tiedemann family still linger there, unable to find peace. Some say Hannes himself walks the halls at night, his heavy boots echoing through the empty rooms, searching for redemption or revenge. Others believe the house absorbed the sorrow of all who lived and died there, and now it breathes that sadness back into the world. Even seasoned ghost hunters have been known to flee Franklin Castle. Equipment fails without explanation. Voices are caught on recorders when no one is speaking. Doors slam so violently that the entire structure seems to shudder. Some investigators have reported being touched by unseen hands or feeling an icy breath against their neck. One even claimed that, as he turned to leave, he heard a whisper directly in his ear, a single word that chilled him to the bone. Stay. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, there is no denying that Franklin Castle carries an atmosphere unlike any other. It is a place where time has stopped, where echoes of tragedy still linger, and where the past refuses to be forgotten. It stands as both a monument to ambition and a reminder that some houses remember every pain, every secret, and every cry that was ever uttered within their walls. And as the wind howls through the turrets at night, the people of Cleveland still look toward the old mansion and wonder, what really happened behind those doors, and why does Franklin Castle never rest? Number 12. Wildermouth Mansion, Pomeroy, Ohio. In the quiet town of Pomeroy, where the Ohio River bends like a ribbon of silver beneath the hills, there stands a mansion that has long outlived the people who built it. Its name is Wildermouth Mansion, a grand aging house that sits on a rise overlooking the town below. Its columns are cracked, its windows clouded, and its gardens long overgrown. But even in decay, it still carries a strange kind of majesty. Yet locals say that the house is not empty. They say it watches, it listens, and sometimes it calls out to those who pass too close. The Wildermouth family were among the wealthiest in Meigs County in the 19th century. The mansion was their pride, a symbol of power and refinement. Built in the 1850s, it was designed to impress, with tall white pillars, winding staircases, and chandeliers that once shimmered like captured stars. For years, it was filled with laughter, music, and the soft sound of parties drifting into the night. But as the years passed, tragedy began to seep into the house like water through cracks in the stone. Stories tell of illness striking the family again and again. Children were lost before their time, and servants whispered that the house itself seemed to mourn. People began to notice strange things, flickering lights when no one was home, doors that opened and closed on their own, and the faint sound of voices echoing from the upstairs hallways. But it wasn't until after the last member of the Wildermouth family passed away that the stories turned truly dark. In the decades that followed, the mansion changed hands many times. No one stayed for long. Tenants spoke of cold spots that moved through rooms like invisible figures, of mirrors that fogged with handprints when no one was near, and of strange animal-like sounds echoing through the walls. Some swore they saw large, shadowy creatures moving across the lawn at night, not quite human, not quite beast, vanishing into the trees before dawn. One former caretaker described waking in the middle of the night to the sound of scratching at the door. When he opened it, the hall was empty, but muddy footprints led up the stairs. They were shaped like hooves, though much too large for any animal in the region. He left the next day and never returned. Others who have entered the mansion claim to feel watched at all times, as if unseen eyes follow their every move. There are reports of heavy breathing in empty rooms, of the scent of decay rising suddenly and vanishing just as quickly, and of a pale woman seen standing at the top of the staircase. She wears an old-fashioned gown, her hair flowing loosely over her shoulders. Some believe she is the ghost of a Wildermouth daughter who died of fever in her youth. She never speaks, never moves. She only stares, as if waiting for someone who will never come. Paranormal investigators who have braved the mansion describe it as a place of confusion and energy that shifts without warning. One group set up cameras in the parlor, only to find them turned off moments later. When they reviewed the footage, they saw flashes of light, faint figures moving just beyond focus, and the distinct shape of something crawling across the ceiling. The sound recorders picked up low growls, as though an animal were in the room, though nothing was there. There are also stories of a strange hum that fills the air at certain hours of the night, a sound that starts low, like the rumble of distant thunder, and grows louder until it vibrates through the walls. Some say it is the house itself, alive with the echoes of its past. Others believe something ancient resides there, something that has claimed the land long before the mansion was built. People who have spent time in the Wildermouth Mansion often leave changed. They speak of vivid dreams, of seeing shapes in their peripheral vision for weeks afterward, and of hearing whispers when they try to sleep. A few even say they felt something follow them home, a shadow that lingers just at the edge of sight, a chill that never fades. Today, the mansion sits empty, its windows dark, its doors chained shut. But on quiet nights, those who live nearby say the lights sometimes return. They glow faintly behind the dusty glass, moving from room to room as though the house itself is waking from a long sleep. Dogs bark at it from the road, but refuse to go near, and travelers who pass after midnight swear they can hear footsteps pacing the porch, waiting for someone to come inside. Whether the Wildermouth Mansion is haunted by the family who once called it home, or by something far older that hides beneath its foundations, no one can say for sure. But those who know its story will tell you this: if you ever find yourself in Pomeroy after dark, and you see a grand old house sitting alone on the hill, keep walking. Do not look too long. Do not listen to the sounds that call from within, because once you hear the whispers of the Wildermouth Mansion, they say, it never lets you go. Number 13. Dick's Fairweather House, Maumee, Ohio. In the quiet streets of Maumee, Ohio, there stands an old house that locals know only by its reputation for mystery and unease. The Dick's Fairweather House rises with a solemn presence, its weathered wood siding and tall windows hinting at a history both rich and troubled. It is not merely a relic of the past. It is a place where the living and the dead are said to meet, where whispers linger long after sunset, and where the spirit of Aunt Phoebe continues to appear, her presence felt by all who enter. Built in the early 19th century, the house has long been tied to the Fairweather family, a prominent household in the region. It was a home of ordinary life on the surface, filled with laughter, meals shared in the parlor, and children running through the halls. But behind the facade of everyday living, tragedy and the inexplicable left their mark. Family records tell of sudden illnesses, untimely deaths, and strange occurrences that no explanation could resolve. It was during this time that Aunt Phoebe, a beloved yet mysterious figure of the household, reportedly passed away under circumstances that left neighbors whispering. Since her death, the house has been a center of paranormal activity. Visitors report feeling sudden chills in empty rooms, hearing footsteps pacing the upper floors, and seeing shadowy figures gliding silently through the hallways. Aunt Phoebe is said to appear at unexpected times, often by the fireplace or near the staircase, wearing long-period clothing, her expression both kind and sorrowful. She does not speak, but those who encounter her describe an overwhelming feeling of being watched, guided, or sometimes warned. Those who have spent nights inside the Dick's Fairweather house recount unusual sounds, doors opening and closing on their own, soft whispers just beyond hearing, and the distant creak of rocking chairs in empty rooms. Lights often flicker, and some visitors report seeing small, indistinct figures at the edges of vision, vanishing when looked at directly. Some psychics believe that Aunt Phoebe's spirit lingers to protect the home and to maintain a connection with the world she left behind. Others sense a sadness that saturates the air, as if the house itself has absorbed every sorrow and secret ever experienced within its walls. Even locals who only pass the house at night feel its presence. Windows seem to glimmer with movement, shadows twist unnaturally, and some claim to hear a soft voice calling, come inside, though no one is there. Paranormal researchers who have investigated the house often leave shaken, their equipment failing in strange ways, recording unexplained noises and capturing images of ghostly shapes in places where no person stands. The Fairweather house stands as a testament to the enduring power of memory, grief, and the unseen. Aunt Phoebe, whether a benevolent spirit or a restless presence, has made the house her home, ensuring that all who enter are aware that the past is never truly gone. Its walls hold stories that cannot be forgotten, and for those brave enough to explore, it is a haunting reminder that some spirits linger, watching, guiding, and occasionally manifesting in ways that defy explanation. Number 14. Thurber House, Columbus, Ohio. In the heart of Columbus, Ohio, tucked away on a quiet street lined with trees, stands a modest brick home that has long attracted the attention of both literary enthusiasts and those drawn to the supernatural. This is Thurber House, the former home of James Thurber, one of America's most beloved humorists and cartoonists. Though it may appear unassuming from the outside, the house holds stories that go far beyond the life of its famous resident. It is a place where the past lingers in every corner, and where visitors have reported experiences that suggest the walls themselves remember the people who once lived there. Built in the early 20th century, the house was a comfortable family home. James Thurber, known for his sharp wit, whimsical illustrations, and subtle observations of human nature, spent a portion of his life here. Those who study his life know that he was not only brilliant, but also deeply sensitive, often absorbing the moods and energies around him. Some believe that this sensitivity extended beyond the ordinary, leaving behind traces of his presence in the very rooms he once occupied. Over the decades, visitors and neighbors have reported unusual activity that cannot easily be explained. People entering the home claim to feel sudden drops in temperature in certain rooms, especially near Thurber's old study. Others have described hearing the faint scratching of a pen across paper, though the house has long been empty of writing materials. There are accounts of books that seem to fall from shelves on their own, and sometimes the sound of light footsteps echoes through the hallways, though no one is there. Many who have spent extended time in the house report seeing shadowy figures in the corners of their vision. Some describe glimpsing a small, bespectacled man moving quietly through the study or library, only to vanish when approached. Others have felt a presence hovering nearby, as if someone were reading over their shoulder, studying their every move. Paranormal investigators suggest that the energy of creativity, sorrow, and contemplation may have left a lasting imprint, making Thurber House a unique and unusually active location. Even casual visitors have told stories of strange auditory experiences. Some hear laughter that rises and falls softly in the rooms, playful and fleeting, reminiscent of Thurber's whimsical cartoons and stories. Others report hearing a voice reading aloud, quiet and calm, reciting lines from his writings, though no one is present. These experiences, though subtle, leave a lasting impression, as if the house itself is keeping the memory of its resident alive. The garden and exterior areas of the property are not exempt from unexplained phenomena. People walking by the home after dusk often feel watched or notice shadows moving across the windows. On windy nights, the creak of the old wooden gate sometimes sounds like a rhythmic knock, echoing across the yard. Some locals claim to have glimpsed a faint figure standing in the doorway, silhouetted by the soft glow of moonlight, before disappearing entirely. Thurber House also holds a reputation among literary historians who venture inside. They say it is almost impossible to remain in the old study for long without sensing a presence. One visiting writer reported feeling as if invisible eyes were following their hand as they wrote notes, as if the spirit of Thurber himself were observing and approving, or perhaps critiquing. Others who have spent the night in the house claim to have heard the scratching of a pencil, the soft shuffle of papers, or even the faint, echoing laughter of an unseen man. Despite these strange occurrences, the house is not considered threatening. Its haunting is subtle, contemplative, and lingering rather than violent. Those who encounter these experiences often describe a sense of connection rather than fear, as if the house allows its visitors to step briefly into the life and mind of its former resident. The spirit of creativity and the aura of James Thurber's presence seem to permeate the walls, leaving an imprint that endures long after the man himself has gone. Today, Thurber House stands as both a historical landmark and a quiet center of fascination for ghost enthusiasts and literature lovers alike. Its modest exterior belies the complex stories within, stories of creativity, loss, humor, and lingering presence. Anyone who steps inside can feel it, a subtle vibration in the air, the echo of footsteps long past, the soft sigh of papers shifting, and the unmistakable impression that James Thurber's spirit still wanders these rooms, ever watchful, ever present, ensuring that his home continues to tell its own story. Number 15. The Corner House, Coshocton, Ohio. In the quiet crossroads of Coshocton, Ohio, there sits an old abandoned home known to locals simply as the Corner House. Its weathered exterior and broken windows give it an eerie appearance even in daylight. But at night, it transforms into something far more unsettling. The house is notorious for the spirit of a woman in black, who is said to roam its halls and grounds, a presence that has terrified generations of passers-by and ghost hunters alike. The Corner House was built in the late 1800s and once stood as a proud family home at the intersection of two dirt roads that have since become quieter streets. Over time, tragedy struck the family who lived there. Some locals claim that the woman in black was a member of the family who suffered a cruel and untimely death, while others suggest she may have been a visitor who met misfortune at the house. Whatever the truth, her presence is said to linger, trapped in the home where her life ended. Visitors report cold drafts that sweep through rooms with no open windows, doors that creak open and shut on their own, and the feeling of being watched by an unseen figure. Those brave enough to step inside often speak of a sudden heaviness in the air, an oppressive presence that grows stronger the longer they stay. The figure of the woman in black is most often seen standing silently at the top of the staircase or gliding along the hallways, her dark dress flowing as if moved by an invisible wind. Her face is obscured by shadow, but those who have glimpsed it describe eyes that seem sorrowful and accusatory, as if searching for something lost long ago. Many ghost hunters who have investigated the Corner House report strange phenomena. Cameras malfunction for no reason, audio recorders pick up unexplained voices, and flashes of light appear in photographs where no source exists. Some claim to hear footsteps pacing the floor above, furniture moving slightly when no one is present, and soft whispers calling out names from empty rooms. One investigator even reported a sudden tug on his sleeve as he walked through the front hall, though no one else was near. Local legend says that the woman in black is tied to the house in a tragic loop of loss and sorrow. Those who have lived nearby for decades claim to see her standing by the windows at night, staring into the distance as if waiting for someone who will never return. Others speak of a shadow crossing the intersection where the house stands, appearing suddenly and vanishing before they can reach it. Despite years of abandonment, the corner house retains an undeniable presence. Its walls seem to whisper with the echoes of the past. Its rooms carry the weight of grief, and its grounds are haunted by the lingering energy of a life cut short. Passers-by often feel an inexplicable chill, hear faint cries, or see fleeting shadows near the windows, reminders that some spirits do not rest quietly. The corner house stands today as a stark reminder that some tragedies leave a permanent mark. The spirit of the woman in black continues to roam its halls, a guardian of sorrow, a witness to history, and a presence that ensures the house is never forgotten. For those who dare approach it, the message is clear. Respect the past, for it lives on in ways you cannot always see, hear, or understand. As our journey through some of America's most haunted houses comes to a close, it is impossible not to feel the weight of the stories we have explored. From the fog-laden hills of Cornwall to the quiet streets of Ohio, each house tells a tale of tragedy, mystery, and lingering spirits that refuse to be forgotten. These are not mere buildings. They are vessels of memory, sorrow, and sometimes even warning. Every floorboard, every cracked window, every shadow that moves across the hallway is a whisper from the past, reminding us that history is never truly gone. Think of the Franklin Castle in Cleveland, where the Tiedemann family's sorrow and secrets seem to seep from every corner. Imagine standing in the abandoned halls of the corner house in Coshocton, Ohio, and feeling the presence of the woman in black, watching silently. Picture the Wildermouth Mansion in Pomeroy, where shadowy creatures and strange animal forms roam the night. These houses are not only haunted by spirits, but by the stories of the lives once lived within their walls. Lives that ended too soon, lives that carried heavy secrets, lives that left echoes behind for those brave enough to listen. Some of these spirits are gentle, merely longing to be remembered, while others carry a weight of sorrow or rage so intense it makes the air tremble and the walls shiver. Visitors have reported cold spots, voices, moving objects, and glimpses of figures from another time. Investigators with cameras and recording equipment often leave shaken, convinced that something unseen has been observing them. Even the locals who live near these homes cannot ignore their presence. They whisper warnings about approaching at night, about listening too closely, about feeling the chill of a ghostly hand brushing across your shoulder. What ties all of these haunted houses together is not just tragedy, but memory. Each home carries the imprint of those who walked its halls, who laughed, cried, loved, or died within. And perhaps that is the true terror and fascination of the supernatural, the realization that even when life ends, something of it can remain. The walls remember, the shadows remember, the wind carries whispers, and we are reminded that we are only visitors in a story far larger than ourselves. As you reflect on these tales, consider this. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of houses across America and the world that hold secrets like these, secrets that have never been told and may never be. The haunted homes we shared today are only the beginning. Each one challenges our understanding of life and death, of reality and the unknown, and reminds us that sometimes the past reaches forward in ways we cannot predict. If these stories stirred your curiosity, your sense of adventure, or even your spine, imagine standing at the threshold of one of these homes yourself. To walk through an old doorway, to feel the chill of a room where history lingers, to hear the faint echoes of voices long gone, It is an experience unlike any other. The question is not whether you will encounter a ghost, but whether you will feel the weight of their stories pressing around you. And so, if you are ready to explore further, to see the unseen, and to step into places where the past still whispers, make sure to take every precaution and approach with respect. These are not ordinary experiences. These are encounters with history, sorrow, and spirits that have waited a long time to be remembered. If you enjoyed this journey into the haunted, the cursed, and the unexplained, make sure to subscribe to stay updated on more stories that will chill, fascinate, and amaze. Share this with friends who dare to explore the unknown. Comment below your favorite haunted house or your own experiences with places that feel more alive at night than they ever did in the day. Turn on notifications because there is always another story waiting just beyond the shadows. Remember, the haunted are always watching, the forgotten are always listening, and every story you uncover keeps their memory alive. Step carefully, look closely, and never forget, the world is full of mysteries, and some are closer than you think. If you are brave enough to continue, there are more haunted houses, more ghostly encounters, and more chilling stories ready to be discovered. The past is never gone, the spirits never rest, and the unknown is waiting. So keep your lights on, listen for the whispers, and when the shadows shift, remember that somewhere, someone is watching, waiting, and maybe even guiding you through the haunted corridors of history.